Did you know that 55% of people can't finish a book once they start it? Shocking, right? But the real kicker is this: the reason isn't the book itself, it's often the way the story is told. In a world filled with distractions, your story has to grab attention fast and keep people hooked. The best storytellers know how to draw you in from the first sentence. They make you care about the characters, the world, and the plot, without making you work for it. They don't just tell you a story, they make you feel it. And here's something you might not know: storytelling is a skill you can learn, just like any other. In this video, you're going to uncover 6 powerful rules that every great storyteller follows. You'll learn how to find the heart of your story, embrace the strange, and keep your audience on the edge of their seat. Whether you're writing a book, making a video, or telling a story at a party, these strategies will help you capture and hold attention. Ready to become a master storyteller? Let's dive in. Chapter 1: Unravel the Knot. Find your narrative's core. One of the first steps to becoming a great storyteller is identifying the core of your story. You need to know exactly what your story is about. David Foster Wallace once said, "The most difficult part of writing is figuring out what you're writing about." It's true, without a clear idea of your central message, your story can feel like a tangled mess. Start by asking yourself, what is the one thing I want my audience to take away from this? This doesn't mean you can't have a complex plot, but your main idea should always be in focus. Great stories have a purpose that shapes the characters, themes, and action. The story's core idea will give your plot direction. Think of it like the compass of your narrative. It helps you avoid getting lost in unnecessary details. Some of the best stories don't have endless subplots. They simply zoom in on one key concept and explore it deeply. Take The Great Gatsby, for example. At its heart, it's a story about the American dream, and that central idea keeps the whole narrative grounded. Also, try to make your core idea both personal and universal. A good story resonates with people because they can connect to it. Whether it's love, loss, or ambition, your theme should speak to something larger than just the characters in your story. The beauty of universal ideas is that they reach across cultures, languages, and experiences. Once you've found your story's core, it's easier to figure out the tone, pacing, and structure. Focus on that one thing, and everything else will fall into place. Chapter 2: The Rule of Oddities. Embrace weirdness, stay authentic. Great stories often emerge from the unexpected. Embracing the strange and unusual elements of your characters, plot, or setting is one way to make your story stand out. This doesn't mean you have to write about wizards or aliens, but think about what's unusual in the everyday world and bring that to life. David Foster Wallace was known for his ability to find beauty in the bizarre. In Infinite Jest, he weaves complex, oddball characters into an otherwise normal setting, making readers think, "I never expected this to happen, but I can't look away." He said, "Fiction's about what it means to be human, which is weird. Think of your characters' quirks. It's the little things that make them real." Maybe your protagonist has an obsession with old typewriters, or perhaps they wear mismatched socks on purpose. These details humanize them, making your audience more connected to their experiences. Research backs this up. A 2014 study from the Journal of Consumer Research found that authenticity in storytelling builds trust. When characters feel real and flawed, audiences are more likely to emotionally invest. Authenticity isn't about being normal, it's about being honest with who your characters are. Additionally, don't be afraid to let your plot wander into unfamiliar territory. If your story feels like it could happen in any small town or big city, you might need to add some oddities to make it unique. Think of the curious incident of the dog in the nighttime. The novel's protagonist, Christopher, is unusual, and that makes the plot more compelling. By embracing the oddities, you're creating something fresh, something readers haven't seen a million times. It's in the unexpected twists and turns that your story will find its voice. Chapter 3: Dare to Disconnect. The Power of Uncertainty. In storytelling, uncertainty can be a powerful tool. Often, the best way to keep your audience engaged is to give them just enough information to keep them guessing. David Foster Wallace said, "The best stories don't tell you everything, they leave things for you to figure out." And he's right. The space between what you say and what you leave unsaid is where tension builds. When we talk about uncertainty, we're not suggesting that your plot should be confusing. Instead, leave some details open-ended. Let the audience fill in the blanks, letting their imagination do the work. This strategy can elevate the emotional impact of your story. A great example of this is in The Sixth Sense. The movie doesn't reveal its biggest twist until the very end. The whole time, the audience is left to piece things together based on the subtle clues scattered throughout. But it's the uncertainty, the question of what's really happening, that makes the twist so powerful. Studies show that uncertainty can increase engagement. A 2018 psychological science study found that people are more likely to stay engaged with content that challenges their expectations or leaves them wondering. When you play with uncertainty, you're forcing the audience to invest in your story on a deeper level. The trick to handling uncertainty is balance. If you leave too much unknown, your audience may become frustrated. But if you give just enough mystery, they'll feel like they're part of the experience. The key is to maintain control over what you reveal and when. Think about how suspenseful moments work in great stories. In many films, the viewer doesn't know all the details, but the sense of tension keeps them hooked. This is what makes storytelling so thrilling. It's the unanswered questions, the emotional stakes, and the anticipation that grips the audience. Ultimately, embracing uncertainty isn't about making your story a puzzle. It's about creating a sense of wonder and engagement. By allowing some things to remain unclear, you're inviting your audience to be active participants in the story rather than passive listeners. If you're enjoying these tips, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more storytelling strategies that'll take your writing to the next level. Chapter 4, The Mind of a Character. Walk inside their shoes, and their thoughts. To truly captivate your audience, you must dive deep into the minds of your characters. The most unforgettable characters are those whose thoughts, emotions, and motivations are clear to the reader. David Foster Wallace once said, "Great fiction is about the writer doing their very best to explain how a character thinks and feels." It's not enough to just describe what a character does. You need to understand what drives them and why. Start by asking, what does my character want? Their desires should be clear and powerful, whether it's love, redemption, success, or something more complex. What makes them tick? What are they afraid of? The more you understand your character's inner world, the more real and relatable they'll feel. In fact, research from the Journal of Experimental Psychology shows that the more emotionally complex a character, the more invested readers become in their journey. A character who experiences doubt, joy, fear, and triumph will resonate more deeply than one who just reacts to events without inner conflict. Take a page from To Kill a Mockingbird. Atticus Finch isn't just a lawyer. He's a father, a man with his own set of beliefs and moral struggles. By exploring his thoughts and feelings, Harper Lee makes him a figure we can all connect with, even decades later. Your character doesn't need to be perfect, they need to feel human. Moreover, delve into their contradictions. Great characters aren't always consistent. They change, they grow, and sometimes they even surprise themselves. This complexity makes them feel more authentic. Just like real people, your characters should be capable of making mistakes, experiencing growth, and facing challenges they don't always understand. To make your characters even more believable, use dialogue that reveals their inner thoughts. Instead of telling your audience, show them through the character's actions, reactions, and speech. This builds a more profound connection between the audience and the characters. By getting inside your characters' heads, you'll create stories that feel real and immersive. The audience won't just be watching, they'll be feeling and thinking with your characters. Chapter 5, In the Details. Why small things hold giant truths. Big events are important, but sometimes it's the smallest details that carry the most weight. David Foster Wallace famously said, "The truth will set you free, but not until it is finished with you." Great storytelling often works in the subtle, in-between moments, those tiny, overlooked details that hint at something larger. It's like when you meet someone for the first time, and a small quirk or gesture reveals more about them than a full conversation could. Take note of the environment your characters are in. Describing a room isn't just about the physical space, it's about capturing the emotional undertone. The way your character interacts with their surroundings can reveal much about their state of mind. A character nervously tapping their foot in a quiet room, for instance, suggests anxiety before any words are spoken. This idea of using details to reveal deeper truths is supported by a study in cognitive science that shows our brains are hardwired to pick up on small, meaningful cues. Whether it's a glance, a gesture, or a fleeting thought, these subtle moments often leave a bigger impact than a dramatic scene. Think about The Catcher in the Rye. Holden Caulfield doesn't just tell us he's struggling. He shows it through the small details of his interactions with people, the way he describes everyday objects, and his obsession with protecting childhood innocence. These details speak volumes about his emotional state, making him one of the most memorable characters in literature. Details also bring texture and depth to your story. They anchor your readers in the world you've built, making everything feel more real. In fact, National Geographic reports that people remember more when they can visualize small, sensory details. So when you describe your setting, engage all 5 senses: sight, sound, smell, touch, and taste. You don't need to overload your audience with every tiny detail, though. Choose wisely, and focus on the ones that matter most. These details will support your main themes, add layers of meaning, and make your story more immersive. So, don't underestimate the power of the small. The best stories often come to life not through grand gestures, but through the thoughtful inclusion of seemingly insignificant moments. Chapter 6: The Clock Never Stops. Time is your story's county author. Time is a silent but powerful force in storytelling. It shapes the plot, impacts character decisions, and dictates the pacing of your narrative. David Foster Wallace understood this deeply. He said, "Time is what keeps everything from happening at once." Managing time in a story is about pacing, knowing when to speed things up, when to slow down, and when to jump across moments. One key strategy is non-linear storytelling. Many of the greatest stories are told out of order. Think of Memento or The Night Circus. These stories unfold backwards or in scattered pieces, and this structure adds intrigue. By manipulating time, you create a puzzle for the audience to piece together. This not only holds attention, but also adds layers of meaning. The pacing of your story is equally important. A rushed story might leave your audience feeling unsatisfied, while dragging things out for too long can lead to frustration. Research shows that humans have a natural attention span of about 8 seconds, similar to a goldfish, so pacing is key to keeping your audience hooked. Use the rhythm of your sentences, paragraphs, and chapters to control the emotional flow. Slow down at crucial moments. Let tension build and let emotions linger. A 2017 study from NeuroImage shows that suspenseful moments in stories trigger heightened emotional responses in our brain. When you take your time during a turning point, you're inviting the audience to feel every moment more deeply. At the same time, don't hesitate to compress time when necessary. Skip over days or weeks to create urgency. Sometimes, less is more, and by glossing over certain periods, you can focus on the moments that matter most. Consider The Time Traveler's Wife. Time isn't just a background element in this novel, it's the core of the narrative. The manipulation of time adds both complexity and emotional weight to the story. The fractured timeline mirrors the chaotic nature of love and loss, enhancing the emotional resonance. Incorporating time doesn't mean you have to complicate your structure. You can simply change the pace of your story by how much time you spend on certain events. Moments of reflection can slow things down, while action scenes can speed things up. Ultimately, time isn't just a tool for organizing events, it's a way to deepen your story. When used strategically, time becomes a character in itself, influencing every aspect of your narrative. If you found these tips helpful, don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more insights on becoming an amazing storyteller.